I really loved working with junior technicians and watching them grow, right? Watching them figure it out, see that kind of light in their eyes when they finally hit right on what, how this system functioned and how repair might play out.
Welcome to Diesel Stories, where we sit down with professionals across the industry to hear about their journey. I'm Jacob Finley, along with Chris O'Brien. Today, we're talking with Tim Hawes, Director of Shop Training at Boss Truck Shops. Tim Hawes, welcome to the podcast.
Jacob, hey, good to be with you today.
Yeah, really glad to speak with you. And we haven't met in person. It's still the time of COVID, but really glad that we got connected. And you actually live in the same town randomly as my parents up in Utah.
Yeah, Brigham City.
Brigham City, Utah. Kind of. Maybe we can talk about that. Kind of spurred this whole thing. But Tim, if you could, tell us maybe what you do and how did you get to this point? Where'd you grow up? You're in Utah now, but you're not from Utah, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So currently, I work for a company, Boston Enterprises, and one of our divisions is the Boss Truck Shops. We're a nationwide repair company all over the U.S., 46 locations currently. I actually started with them as a technician right in Ogden, Utah. Stayed with them. I've been with them about 12 years now. Working my way from tech to GM to regional manager. I'm actually now currently our director of training and development for all of our shops. So
it's very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I get kind of a chance to impact a lot larger population than you do even just at maybe the shop level. You get to kind of design training programs, watch industry trends and kind of meet that need. So it's been a great journey. Like you said, I'm not originally from Utah. I'm actually from North Carolina. Greensboro is where I was born at.
Nice.
We lived there for about 2 years. It was a beautiful place. Go Tar Heels. So I can't do the humidity anymore. That was one big, huge change. Now I've been back a couple of times, and the humidity out there is pretty tough after after a Utah boy. It's really dry out here.
That's Greensboro, right? Greensboro.
Yep.
Yeah. That's where Snyder's got their headquarters, I think.
That's right.
I've been there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good guys.
Another good company. Yeah. Yeah. So, but we ended up out in Utah. It was a while ago. And we moved, I think it was 89. It was my mother. Yeah, it was a long time ago. So my mother and my two brothers, I've got two younger brothers, Lyle and Andy, little shout out there. Good guys. And we ended up in Ogden, beautiful place. A little rough in the beginning, they didn't like that country boy accent. So I got, razzed in school a little bit, but fell in love with Utah a long time ago. Beautiful, beautiful place.
And Ogden, by the way, has gotten a lot nicer. I mean, late 80s, it was rough.
Yeah. They had a big turnaround in the early 2000s. They really cleaned up Ogden. There was kind of a big controversy out there actually because the mayor said kind of this whole downtown Ogden area, we're just going to go through and we'll try to buy everything we can. We're going to revamp it. We'll make you a fair offer on your home, your property, and if you don't, we'll condemn it. That actually happened a couple of times, and there's a few lawsuits. But
something about a river,
up really well. Yeah, it's beautiful down there. They've added a lot of really nice, kind of the newer age shopping centers with a lot of like the iFly, which is a really cool experience. If you had a chance, it kind of replicates skydiving. The Megaplex theaters are down there. It's really, really they did a really good job.
And in Ogden, you're pretty close to some nice ski resorts. I know they had the Olympics there back in 2002. Snow basins just up the canyon and stuff. And I think there's, as part of the revitalization.
Yep. Yeah. There's several.
Yeah. And then I think there's actually some ski companies that came in from out of town to Ogden. Anyway, so it's kind of turned into a cool place. So you got there when it was way, I guess, grittier, right?
Yeah, it was It was a lot different. Yeah, a little bit rougher. And we weren't rich. We weren't the Porsche guys in the neighborhood. So we grew up. Times were tight then for us, and Ogden was a journey, and I still loved it. I still do. But it wasn't easy. It was harder for a lot of the people than it ever was for me. But I loved it, and I've done. I do snowboarding. I can't ski. I've tried it. Snowboarding just came more natural to me. Yeah, I don't. The single board has just always been an easier concept for me to grasp. So snowboarded up there. It's a blast. My brothers are way better, by the way. I better say that or else I'm never going to hear the end of it. So
where would you guys go from Ogden?
Wolf Mountain mostly. It's a little bit cheaper up there.
Yeah.
Snow Basin and stuff is nice, really nice, but it carries that price tag. So
right.
Wolf Mountain's actually just right outside of Eden. Powder Mountain's right up in that same area. Snowbird, all that's kind of.
Yeah, they changed the name to. I actually took my kids there to get ski lessons early on, and my latest. I have 8 kids total, so the latest child to go get ski lessons, we're going up in a couple weeks. We've already got it scheduled and stuff. It's called Nordic Valley now.
That's right.
And they're supposedly putting in a bunch of investment, but yeah, Snow Basin is owned or was owned by the same guy who started Sinclair Oil, right?
That's right.
I forgot what his name was, but I guess he just dumped hundreds of millions of dollars into developing it that, will never get recovered out of the resort, but he had that kind of money. And it's just this super exclusive kind of, I think they're building something even more exclusive up there, but I hear you. Yeah. Wolf Mountain. Good choice.
Yeah. Listen, that's
definitely
it. It never was great at it, but it is fun. So
that's cool that you snowboard too, by the way, because I've only ever skied and haven't, I guess, gotten around to trying snowboarding. And
it's fun.
Yeah, I guess it's Chris.
Yeah. I've never snowboarded. I've only skied.
Have you seen snow, Chris?
Yeah, exactly.
We're in Arizona.
I almost, yeah. So I definitely was, I'm a desert rat, right? I grew up in Tucson and lived in Phoenix and Tucson most of my life. But
there's actually a ski resort in Tucson on Mount Lemmon, the furthest south ski resort in North America.
I think back in the day when I grew up, there was no ski resort.
Oh, really?
It was just Mount Lemmon. But yeah there's, I've only skied, but my sister snowboards and she claims it's easier, but I think that's all part of like the training and what you end up doing and who teaches you how.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a good teacher, right? Okay, cool. So you guys went skiing. That's good. You guys had the opportunity to do that. That's like a dream for a lot of people. I think we have to drive 2.5 hours just to get to a ski resort. So it's cool to like live right down there. What were your, I guess, influences? How did you end up where you are doing diesel repair training? Did you get into that early on, or did you do something different?
Yeah, I wish I could say the kid's dream and went all the way out. But actually, I started in the medical field. So I was a medic in the Army, and
okay,
I got out of that. And tried it in civilian life, and I didn't care for it. I always tell people, I said I got into diesel because when I fix it, it usually stays alive and stays fixed. So the way I got in was actually kind of 2 big influences for me were my grandfather Charlie, who passed just a year before last. He was an EOD guy and he was that old school class, that kind of generation that we see kind of moving on. But
yeah.
The belief that you should be able to, if it could be done, you should be able to do it, right? You should be paying someone else to do it. So we actually always kind of ranched, kind of on the side. He always fixed his own cars. He'd buy them from the auction. So I really got a chance to spend some time with him. And I enjoyed it more as that opportunity to spend time with him than really necessarily as a career. But once I kind of fell out of love with the medical industry, and much love to guys that do that, by the way, please. I'm not, I don't mean to sound demeaning about it at all, but it just wasn't for me. But
yeah,
my brother Lyle, actually, my little brother, so it's almost kind of embarrassing, right? So I kind of actually followed my little brother Lyle. He was going to DATC, Davis Applied Tech Center down here in Kaysville. And he says, hey, you've got to try this. It's really fun. And a really solid career. So I did some research on it, and I thought, you know what? We'll give this a shot. And I kind of ran with it. And my brother Lyle and I went through the program down there at the GATC, a very good program, by the way.
Is that still around, by the way?
They are. Yeah, they're getting bigger, actually. They're doing really well. The trades in Utah are doing, the state's done a good job about making them accessible and affordable. And so they are still there, and it's still a really good program. So,
got it. That's good to hear.
Yeah, it is. And so, and I fell in love with it right away. I love the industry. I really love, I like stability too. I'm kind of old school like that, but I love the people. I love the grittiness of it, kind of like we talked before. I love the technicians. I love our customer base. I mean, truck drivers to me are some of the best people I've ever met. And they're really just, they're out there every day, they're sacrificing. And I really felt like it was really, just really cool to be a part of that. And so I fell right in love with it. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it was way cool. So,
I noticed too, Tim, you just recently got your CDL. Is that correct?
I do. Yeah. So my first job was with the construction company. And it's kind of the Wild West of diesel repair. That's how I always kind of describe it. And you're kind of a jack of all trades. So, and they actually, and this was all kind of occurring. I started in 07 in diesel. And so 08 was coming and I worked for a construction company. So you can imagine about how rough that was. But we had to kind of jack of all trades. So they actually helped me get my CDL. And, when times got tight, I'd actually drive, double belly dumps, an old Pete 379 with Cummins in it and 129,000 pound load on it. We'd actually load right up here out of the Sticker Parsons rock pit right here in Brigham and haul it down to Salt Lake City to get processed for concrete. And then at the end of the day, we'd take all the driver's tickets, and my brother worked there with me as well, Lyle. We'd go kind of back and put in another couple of hours working on all the trucks. So
wait a minute.
It was, so CDL was a big part of it. Just to clarify, for those guys that are listening, I'm a mechanic. I'm not a truck driver. I can do it, right? But it takes a special skill.
You're not entering the national championships.
So, yes. Yeah. I'm not winning awards for it. So, I had my CDL. I actually stuck with school too. The DATC has a really great program with Weber State. And I actually stuck all the way through it. I got my associates in heavy truck and then finally my bachelor's in field service operations. So, because management was always kind of a bigger target for me as well. So I could kind of help technicians as they were coming along. That was another thing I found I really loved as we were going through. I really loved working with junior technicians and watching them grow, right? Watching them figure it out, see that kind of light in their eyes when they finally hit right on what, how the system functioned and kind of how repair might play out. So that was always kind of my longer game. Utah's really good. It has a really good program all the way through. So,
yeah, it's good to hear. Utah's a unique state. Utah tends to row in a slightly different direction than the rest of the country in certain ways, not in a bad way, just different, right? So, I mean, there's another indicator there. That's good. Because, outside of Utah, from everything we can see, technical schools are closing, not opening. So, that's
and Utah's
cool.
It's a really industrial state. That's how I always describe it to people.
Yeah.
A lot of our main staples are manufacturing, transport, warehousing, things like that. And so the state's done a really good job about investing in that infrastructure on both ends. Right. And industry-wide, that's a big failure we see out there, especially in our industry. Is it won't just be private companies that kind of solve these issues that we see coming. It's going to have to be a partnership between states, schools, employers, and Utah's done really great with that. I mean, they've done a really good job about pushing technical college rather than necessarily maybe chasing that bachelor's degree. And you see it. I mean, they've got the commercials for it, the funding. DATC and Weber State are both state-funded schools, and they're very affordable for both of them.
Are you seeing the high schools? They're keeping the shops open, like auto shop programs open.
They are. Yeah, we do see some of them. It's been, COVID's been just a challenge from any angle.
Right.
We do still see some of them. They are still having those programs. DATC's done really well. I just interviewed a potential new hire for our shop right here in Ogden that was a DATC graduate. So they're still, and he was in automotive in high school. So it's still playing out here. And that's, it's really good to see, especially when we start to see these trends that are happening and, all across the country in our industry. It's really good to see that.
Yeah, that's cool. So did you say you started, I might've missed this, but did you say you started in diesel in 2007?
Correct. Yep.
So you were in the Army up to that point?
06. Yeah.
Up until 06 as a medic. And one of the things that we tell about our backstory with Full Bay is that we kind of built it. And Chris and I previously in a past life worked for an electronic medical records company. And kind of our thesis in building it was, hey, let's take some of the best ideas from the electronic medical records world that maybe aren't seeing the light of day, maybe they are, and apply them in truck repair and essentially build a medical record for trucks, right? And heavy equipment, and gear it toward, preventive medicine, preventive maintenance, so on and so forth. So it's cool to hear that in your background.
They're very similar. Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't think that they're actually quite similar. So.
Yeah. So you were doing soap notes and all that. You ever run into that? Did they make you do that?
You're talking about SOP, shop operational, or
no, in the medical. So the SOAP note, like subjective objective assessment plan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. They'll train you. Yeah, that's one of the first things they train you when you're a medic is doing your kind of diagnostic. So it was interesting. I never saw overseas combat, by the way. Better clarify that. I hate guys that make that claim, but.
Yeah, sure.
Probably pretty fortunate. I was pretty young and pretty dumb, so I probably would have been. I would have come home. So, it was an interesting time. Being a medic in the Army was definitely interesting. A great opportunity, by the way, and I always love those guys that serve. It was a blessing for me. But I just found it just wasn't something I wanted to carry in the civilian world. So kind of that 06, 07 transition, I just said, this isn't working for me. My brother Lyle knew that. He knew I wasn't too happy. Kind of with the way things are going, and he said, look, you've got to try it. So, and I got to tell you, it's probably the best decision I love this industry.
Yeah,
those guys out there, they're looking at it. I've got to tell you, it's, and a lot of times, and this is probably true of every younger generation, you hear this all the time. We're talking about, the kids these days. And I imagine that our parents said the same thing about us. So, but, a lot of times you see them, they're looking out there and they're looking at career choices, and they want, that kind of glamorous and that kind of, technical, the bachelor's degree, and they push these different things that you see. But the diesel industry offers several things. But, if you're looking for a career choice, I've got to tell you, stability is the number one. And when you're a little younger, maybe that's not quite as important, but I've got to tell you, as you get older and you start having kids, you said, Jake, you had 8. I've got 2 of my own, 2 boys. And I look at them every day, and it changes kind of your perspective on what matters.
Yeah.
And stability became a big, big, big important thing for me. And diesel is getting more glamorous, by the way. Let me not make it sound like some Neanderthal, Neanderthal task, but it's really changed.
No, it's not. I was going to ask you, how did your brother talk you into it? Right. I mean, how did you view it before? You're like, oh, Lyle's in this, and poor him. I'm traveling the world as a medic.
Right.
And where'd you end up serving, by the way? Were you stateside most of the time?
I was, yeah. I had one deployment. It was to Central America, to Belize, a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country.
It's a tough assignment.
Yeah, gorgeous country. So, no, he just said, he had kind of followed the automotive track, kind of like our grandpa Charlie. So he'd done auto in school, and he kind of stuck with that. And he had a job. I remember he was talking to me about it. And he says, because I was looking for a job. I was working in kind of like a home, like a long-term care facility. And it was rough. And I said, I was looking to be an EMT stateside. That's kind of the direct transition from a medic to the civilian kind of equivalent. And I found out, right away that, to be an EMT in the state of Utah, you have to go back to school for your firefighter certification. And they'll hire you before you've got it, but it was looking slim, right? I was applying actually in North Ogden. They've got a nice fire department there. And, he says, you get a pretty good chance in your military background. You got to go to school. He says, I think we've only got about, 16 other applicants, right? So he tells me
for the one position.
Crap. Yeah, for one position. And so I says, I've got to talk to my brother Lyle about it. And he says, he had a job. He says, I went to school, and my instructor, Neil Cheney, real good guy, says, just go apply right here. And he walked down, he says he applied, he had a job the next day. I thought, that's crazy, So I did some research. I've always been kind of a research guy, and the higher rates, and it's even worse now than it was then. But I mean, you're looking at 1 for 1. Normally they'd have, at this time in 07, they're having, 1, maybe 1.5 applicants for every opening. And you looked like EMT and the type of field I was looking at. you're looking at 2-3 applicants per position. So I said, oh, it's pretty interesting. What they pay you, right? You've always got to ask that. So I asked them what they paid him, and it was pretty good money. And I said, well, that's, you can't beat that. And I said, well, I'll come down and take a look. I actually went down, and DTC will take you on a kind of a tour down there. And I got to see kind of the way the school was laid out. And I was just so impressed. It was a lot more technology than you would have imagined. Even in 2007, it was starting to change. But, and I was just thought this is really a lot different than I imagined it was going to be. You think of a semi truck, especially back then, you're thinking, just this big, black smoking, grease dumping, old dump truck, right? But it really wasn't. It was a lot more technologically advanced than I'd imagined. Mm-hmm. And I was just impressed. And it caught my imagination right then, and the stability of it that it offered, and the pay was all good. So, so he sold me on it. He did. He took me under his wing. I think I'm 9 years his senior, so it was a little odd, but I think I was 26 or 27 at the time, something.
That's good. You don't want to fall into older brother syndrome where you discount anything your younger sibling says. I know all about that because I'm in the middle of 7. So yeah, that's good. Good for you.
So Tim, going into diesel tech, so you're turning wrenches doing diesel tech. Were you like a guy that people would go to or look to for advice, or you kind of just naturally started leading folks, and which led you to shop foreman and moving up into like a trainer role?
Yeah. So I found I did have a gift. You kind of find it usually in the diesel industry, especially as you get more advanced. Technicians will kind of excel in one area or the other. I call them hardware and software techs, right? And the hardware guys are your clutch and trans and your bushings, and things like that. And then systems guys or software guys, that was kind of more my strength. So I was really good at advanced diagnostic. I had a natural affinity for non-visual systems like AC, electronic engine diagnostic, and not the beginning. And let me tell you, some guys say, I do a lot of tech support with the program we run now. And I say, oh, Tim, man, you're so smart. How'd you get there? And you got to stay humble. I tell them, I said, well, here's how you do it. I said, this is my advice to junior technicians. I said, all I had to do was screw everything up for about the first 2 years. And then you start to figure it out. So, don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's kind of the point we make. And after a year or two, I kind of found, I was already the elder brother, so I kind of had an affinity, like you said, for leadership. My skill set started to develop within that first couple of years. And I was always a hard worker. I like to work hard. And so I moved when I was at the construction company. I moved from a technician to night foreman to shop foreman in about 2 years. And I found that it was the reward of watching others grow. It was always something I really just loved. And it just kind of stayed my career path as I moved. Same thing. I kind of had an interim there. I went from a construction company to an auto transport company. Those were some rough days. That was a little bit darker of a location. And I was only there about a year. And then I found Boss Truck Shop, the company I'm with now, really great company, family owned. I always call them the last of the little big guys. And I kind of followed that same path, from technician to GM to regional to trainer. And if you've got a real affinity for that growth and that empathy, emotional IQ is kind of the buzzwords you'll hear around it. But this is a great industry to grow as a leader and grow as a technician. So it's always been a fun journey. That's the one thing. It's really odd. I always tell people I'm broken for any other industry now because, this industry is not quite as PC as some. I really like that about it. You can be a lot more human here than you can in some industries, and a lot more allowance for mistakes and things like that. So I always just enjoyed it, and luckily I worked for people who recognize that skill. And in this industry anyway, by nature, it's easier to advance. I found that to be the case across multiple. Now I'm getting my MBA now, and so you get a chance to get kind of exposed to other industries.
Nice.
And what I found is, the diesel industry really, with the way the market and the labor market's shaping up, it's a place that you can grow. You can grow rapidly. A lot of people don't realize it, but the pay is much better. Medium income for a diesel technician in the United States is slightly higher than the medium income for a bachelor graduate. So it's just a real great place to be in. And I was fortunate enough to be pretty good at it. So
that's cool. Hey, where are you getting your MBA?
SUU. So Weber was a no-go for me. I wanted to go back to Weber State, but I don't have a business undergrad. I've got a bachelor's of applied science. So they wanted me to take like 5 extra classes. And just, for you guys looking at an MBA, the cost per credit is unbelievable. And 5 extra classes was like another, it was like another $4,000 or $6,000 in it was like almost a year's time.
Right.
So SUU has a great kind of online fast track. You got to be ready to work hard because it comes at you fast. But they actually combine all 4 of those prereq, non-business undergrad classes into a single course. And so my first class there was my meat grinder, and it was pretty rough. But
there's some good stuff in there.
Halfway through now. So
I mean, all those classes that you take in an MBA program, like in some form or another, would be so beneficial for any shop owner out there. I'm not necessarily suggesting that you got to go get your MBA, but like you're talking like, because they run you through the ringer in an MBA program with like finance, operations. You're going to do some accounting, marketing, all these basics that a lot of shop owners, they can do the diag and the repair and so forth, but maybe on the business side of things, like just a little bit of training on that end would just have a massive difference. So good for you going through that. I mean, that's going to give you quite the perspective. I think that's really good.
It is. Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you were going to go to Weber State. Glad you didn't get banned from campus. The 4-class thing, that's understandable. So when you first said that it was a no-go for you, but
I felt bad. Yeah, I almost felt bad. The Wildcat from Salon. I said, but the cost, you got to weigh those costs, and it was.
Oh yeah, it's totally reasonable. Yeah. Plus, if you can do it online, my cousin-in-law, I guess, is the head of the accounting program over there at Weber State. So
yeah, good school too.
Yeah, good. Yeah, great school. I was wondering, sorry, Chris, did I interrupt you?
No, we're good.
Well, I was wondering, so you have such a unique path going into this where, your brother Lyle talked you into it and introduced you to it. Does that help you? Do you do a lot of recruiting trying to get people to switch careers and get into, diesel repair? Does that ever come up with you? And if so, how do you think your path influenced that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Probably our most natural transition that we recruit from is automotive, just because there's so many more benefits to diesel than there is to auto. But we have a lot of guys, and we see it play out. And yeah, like you said, kind of coming from that same natural path, we see it a lot in our industry, whether they're going to either to drive or to wrench. 2008 was a big one, and I was kind of part of that as well. But again, like in 2010 and 12, when the economy got a little rocky, we would see that influx. And I love talking to people that come from other industries because it's such a fun transition, and I love to be part of it. So I've hired guys from customer service backgrounds. I haven't hired anybody else from medical background, but I've hired them from customer service, automotive. I've had them come from oil fields, another big one, whether they're in transport or repair out there. And really, it's a great path, especially when the guys get stuck, or gals. But when you're getting stuck out there in the industry you're in and you're looking for a place to go that can grow, I love to kind of tell my story and talk about it, about how advantageous it is. Because for a lot of those guys that are familiar with diesel industry, it's changed a lot in the last decade, especially with the labor market, right? Baby boomers are retiring rapidly. So a lot of our more senior level staff is retiring, and we're not seeing nearly the amount of entry level applicants. And so we're always happy to take them on a transition. And within that risk, within that kind of threat to our industry, is a huge opportunity for those guys that are looking. Maybe you're stuck somewhere in a job you don't like, or you can't see a clear career path. Diesel, I tell these guys, I promise you, the opportunities are infinite, and the advancement path is rapid. I mean, it's because we don't see them coming in at nearly the rate. We're lucky to get one applicant for every 2 openings now. Yeah. That's how tight it's getting out there. And so when they come, it is, we're blessed that you come to us. We are so thankful, because we've been needing to fill that spot for, I've got one opening in the location I'm in now for 6 months. And so, we try not to hire warm bodies. That's a warning I always give to hiring managers. But for a guy, for a guy or gal that's really serious about making that transition, because it's not, it's not easy, and I try to make sure I tell guys that it is work. It's hard work, but you're going to be rewarded for it. I mean, the rewards are huge. And that's one of the biggest changes we see, especially for employers, is, we're driven now by that kind of labor market reality that we're going to take somebody that has no background. And not only are we going to take them, we're going to make sure that they've got a path for growth. They know that path for growth. We're going to be doing the training. We're going to be encouraging the training, the ASC certs and the rest. And I can't tell you how many of our GMs, we've got 46 locations across the country. I can't tell you how many of our GMs started out for us as technicians. And it's huge. I mean, our regional managers, same kind of thing. Myself, a lot of our corporate guys, they started, that's where they began. And that's kind of the beauty of our industry. It's when you're in diesel, it's diesel from top to bottom. You'll have your departments, you got accounting department. Clearly some of them might have, most of them didn't start in diesel, but all of our senior management, all of our senior leadership, all come from that background. So it's a lot different than you might see at a retail operation or something.
So you're saying most of the leadership of the company, they're pretty much all former techs.
Right. Began somewhere like that. Yeah, our division head, Randy Haynes, another shout out there.
We know Randy.
Guy. He began as a technician. He worked tires. That's where he came from, and he's been with our company for a long time. And he's our head honcho. He's our big, he's the big cheese. And that's true of, I think, of almost every single senior leadership position we have. They came from either diesel background, some were military, technician type background, but it's almost a case in every single position when you look out there. So
you think Randy could still do a DOT?
Hey, this is recorded, Jake. I'm better not to say. Problem. I tell you what he still does. He still does tires. If you catch him in your shops, they'll do it. It's kind of part of our culture. I love Boss Shop. I've seen him in shops doing tires. So,
we were recently asked a question. What's the average or entry level wage for technicians? What are you seeing as you're growing technicians and getting them in? You said you're hiring customer service reps. What is that entry level, and is it by region for an entry level technician?
Question. That's a great question. So, and to kind of frame it, let's talk about. So when I started, like in 2007, I was making good. I'm doing finger quotes here. Good money then, and that was I think they paid me $10 an hour. But now, with how short we are, our entry guys are right around 18. And that's in a period of 13 or 14 years. The growth rate of our even our entry level, we've raised our entry pay, I think, every year the last 3 years, and then two or three other times about the last 7 years. So because we're finding that it's getting so hard. And these are entry guys, and we're raising it for our entry pay. Our top pay is pretty high now. We our range from entry to top company wide, we kind of have a base plus commission, so it's a little bit more unique than some other places, but is right between 18 and 34 per hour. So,
and that's on light duty or heavy duty, heavy diesel, or is that across?
We're class 6, 7, and 8, mostly class 8.
Okay.
So we're almost all semi.
You guys are doing mostly over the road stuff, right? With Boss Shops.
Almost all. Yeah. Almost all OTR.
You guys are typically parked at a truck stop at a Pilot Flying J or similar. Yeah.
We, what's interesting, it was just a few years ago, it was about $15 we were hearing, and we were predicting that it was 15 to 18. And that falls right in line, especially with, the shortage that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you guys seen an impact lately? There's this phenomenon so we're recording this on, February 12th. Yesterday, we hosted a webinar with Chris and I did with the American Trucking Association with TMC. And this issue came up that we were talking about on, right now we're going through COVID, and there's this supplemental unemployment benefit from the federal government. And there's this weird situation where Some people make more money not working than coming back to work at the same wage they previously were at, right? And so it's hard to, like, in a certain labor range, and it depends on the state, but it can actually be really hard to find people in a certain labor rate range to come to work because of that supplemental. Do you guys see that at all? Is that impacting? Because if the starting wage is around 18, depending on the state, that's like right in that range.
Yeah, we don't see it necessarily within our own staffing because, of course, we were considered essential, but we saw it in applicants, and it was really odd because we were seeing economies get shut down, and even Utah did as well, kind of in March of last year. And we had openings in. We thought we'd see an influx, and we didn't. That was kind of odd because they were closing a lot of places, and a lot of places were either shut down or going out of business, and we didn't see applications. So, I suspect that played a part. Utah, was kind of part of that same thing.
Yeah.
We didn't lose any of our own. We were lucky there. We didn't have to shut down. We were very fortunate. No outbreaks in our company, nothing like that. But yeah, we didn't see many applications come in, even nationwide, during that time period. And with the unemployment, Utah did pretty good. We stayed pretty low, but in some of our states, it was 6, 7, 8, 9%. And we weren't seeing applications coming in. We were struggling then. We still are.
And you're in charge of training, not just there in Ogden, but like across the board with Bosselman, right?
Yeah. So I design all of our training platforms, kind of our operational policies. We've got a tech support hotline as well. And then I'm also do all of our warranties. So I kind of handle all of our kind of technical aspects.
Now, one of the things so with last year with the pandemic, you've obviously had to pivot with, just coming into work, having weekly meetings with technicians, how close they work together. How's that impacted you, and how's that changed the way that you train? Or is that now infused in the training programs, and you had to build all that protocol to cover 2020?
And so it did. It had a big hit. So we actually started a lot of our technical programs. We had a ton. I'm not going to get into all of them, but we rolled a lot of them out in 2018, 2019, when we saw this, this technician labor market shortage coming. And most of our training, and I've always found this to be true, is, the most effective is hands-on. We try to couple that with digital training as well. But in our industry, hands-on is really the most effective. So we did a lot of traveling. We set up senior technicians all across the country to kind of act as go-to guys to help their locations within their region. And so we had a lot of things going. 2020 was like a hammer to that. I mean, it just smashed all of it. We couldn't travel anymore. Of course, HR was concerned about any type of exposure, especially for mandating travel. So we really cut all that back. So we made a huge, huge, huge dent in our training program for 2020. So we did pivot to digital. We're developing a lot of that now. Even that was harder though, because we're doing video shoots, a lot of self-made content, based on separate truck systems. And we want to shoot the videos, but we got to bring a video guy in for marketing. We got to get basic technicians together to do the class and kind of do the training aspect. So it's been
still an in-person component.
It's still yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, it has been rough. State by state kind of made a difference. Some locations like Utah was always pretty good. They never shut down the DATC, anything like that. But we're actually based out of Nebraska, and they weren't too bad either. But we just kind of got stopped right in our tracks. So this year now, we're going to be releasing this year our first block of fundamental training, which is, I think our 4 videos this year, our 4 training platforms this year are going to be basic emissions, basic electrical, DOT, and then wheel end was another one we had. So, and we'll do in kind of a video format, and that's the way it's going to have to go. And we think it will stay part of our future training platform. We still are really interested in the hands-on. That's really kind of a bigger part for us. But the digital aspect, you kind of learn a lot in COVID.
Yeah.
Kind of like a lot of people say. And there is a way to reach those technicians other than in person. And we've kind of learned that as we've gone through our tech support hotline and kind of our training and policy, procedural rollouts. And so we think that, going forward, we use a software platform that is fairly good at it. We will continue to have that digital aspect. I think it's going to keep playing a big part.
Yeah.
So.
Now, so this is like you're training, like the wheel ends and you're going right into how-tos, right, for these technicians. Are you also, so I worked with a group when I was doing private fleet where we brought in a company called Kelly Fleet Services from back in the day. They were based out of California, and they had this whole training regiment where they brought in somebody and the shop was, all these employees were set to run the shop a very specific way. This is how you run it. This is how the bays are. Lines were drawn on the floor, jacks, everything had their place. Do you facilitate all of that type of training and that kind of overview on how the site is ran and designed and how people interact, or is it mostly the direct technical training for the technicians?
So we call that staging.
Okay.
Staging and flow control. We do training on quite a bit of that, but it's mostly directed at our GMs right now. It's probably not a bad idea to push it out to your technicians, though. They do, of course, take part in it, kind of as the end result. That's probably actually a pretty good idea, but most of our training is technically focused. And like you said, we'll do some system overview, but most of our training is, even when we go to the video platform, it will be like a live truck teardown. It will be, it'll be an actual vehicle. We're actually tearing it down like on the wheel end, and we're explaining each different type of hub assembly, for its adjustment and conment and kind of the rest.
Nice.
And show it, talk about it. And that was another good thing we had last year that COVID kind of taught us, is we went a lot more digital with a lot of our control systems like warranty and our tech support hotline. And so we kind of tracked them. I developed an indexing system, and we used all of that feedback to kind of design and shape where our training was going to go. Because that's always the kind of key. Diesel is such a broad application, and there's so many systems. And so we wanted a way to target what was most needed by our technicians. So we took the feedback we were getting from our tech support hotline and then combined that with the warranty returns we were seeing from our customers. And we tried to kind of shape that training tailored to what was best for both sides of it.
Yeah. Now, on the flow that you were talking about too, and how you're tracking warranty and just even parts and service orders, there's a lot of handoffs in process, from customers walking in, handing keys, to taking the information that these are the defects, the DOT inspection, the wet service. And then you've got, the traditional method that we've seen out there is, handwritten ticket or some printed copy, put in an envelope with keys and handed to a tech. And there's all this running back and forth and handoffs. Do you have technology that solves that problem where, in Bay 12, you've got a technician out in that shop? How are you managing that today? Have you had to change that, or are you guys still doing same standard flow processes?
It's changed some. We've used the same software now for some time, and it is starting to create some challenges for us. It's all digital there, but then of course the flow control, like you're talking, it's panels on the wall with work orders, physical, paper work orders on there assigned to each technician. So. But the world is going more digital. We've demoed some softwares. We've looked at a couple of different options. It's actually, it's a lot more effective in the shop, but, it is usually a large cost. What's driving a lot of it, we see actually, is our customer base. Mm-hmm. So what we're starting to see from customers like Schneider and Werner and CR England, these big guys, they want a portal. They want access to see inside of your location, track their truck from start to finish. So we haven't made that switch yet. I imagine it's probably going to happen. It seems fairly inevitable at this point. But a lot of our customer base now is demanding that. They're demanding that type of technical input where they can see it, digitally, virtually, on both sides. So, and I think it would be a huge benefit to our technicians as well, to be able to, look up at a TV screen on the, and out in the bay, or to have a tablet in their hand. And go to track their work orders as they go. So the industry really is turning that way. We haven't quite made that switch yet, but I think it's coming, not just for us, but I think industry-wide it's going to become standard.
Yeah, we were seeing like an uptick in mobile, just the whole idea of private fleets having to shuttle equipment back and forth, or shops trying to shuttle equipment, more of that on-site repair or mobile repair kicking in, a little bit from social distancing and just less touches, right? And then a little bit just from the way the business was changing. There's, the supply chain was running at full speed, in some cases, and things were just breaking down. Or we were even seeing where emergency roadside repair was up because people were slowing down on maintenance programs trying to save money while COVID was going on. So kind of interesting how some of the technology is playing a role and tying into touchless applications.
It's getting big. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of it, even in their internal maintenance tracking for companies. We're seeing a lot of OBD type porting. That's, a lot of geo reporting, as well as diagnostic information directly off the trucks. And that's kind of the workflow. That's kind of the way the industry is going. They're looking for a digital answer where the truck is reporting, GPS data that includes diagnostic information. And then that dispatcher, say it's CR England, is, creating that work order, and they're creating the incident management, and then they're pushing that out to a location, and they're wanting to do all of that seamlessly. Even now, for a long time, it's all been over the telephone or via email. We are seeing some big changes. We did, and COVID did play a big part in that, because they were looking at ways of streamlining, distance-wise. We looked at some different options there as well, but we were seeing an uptick in row calls too. Well, of course, a lot of that, kind of a side note there, was when they lifted the hours ruling for emergency, food transport, things like that. So we were seeing a lot of guys that were either A, trying to cut costs and keep moving, or B, they weren't have to shut down as much, so they try to make it as far as they could before they stopped maintenance. So it was odd. COVID was an odd one for our industry. It really did. Freight was up. I mean, our business was up. We didn't see a huge hit. We did take a little bit of a hit, but not nearly. We didn't know what it was going to look like, right? I mean, nobody did. The freight stayed strong, and we did see some growth, but I think you're right. I think that 2020 especially was a good lesson in the virtual and digital, and what we need for technology to be able to respond to not just incidents like COVID, but changes in the industry. And they got to see, I think a lot of fleets got to see how effective it was when they went to that kind of digital platform, and they can streamline their processes. So I think I think 2020 was a terrible year, but I think it was a year of lessons, and I think we're going to see those play out.
Yeah, and there's kind of a new normal now. Just going back to the training thing, Tim, how much training do you think reasonably can be done online? I know hands-on training, obviously you cannot beat that, but you guys have been kind of forced to figure out, I guess, that distinction, like where you can reasonably draw the line on, things that can be captured on video and kind of consumed by the technicians online versus like actually physically handling that drum or whatever. What do you think is the percentage breakdown for a tech to learn what they need to learn? Or maybe in-service training, is it like 80-20, 80%'s got to be hands-on, 20% can be online? Is it flipped? A lot of the basics could be learned online, maybe 80%, 20% is really just the application. What do you think that breakdown is? We found a lot of different interesting things out during COVID, but I would still say you're going to be 80-20 is probably a pretty good number. It might even be a little higher than that. But training, and when I define, is it 80% training, like hands-on or 80% online?
Yeah, but when we talk about training, it's not just, let's say, we take our wheel end, for example, right? So we take our wheel end training. I can put out a pretty solid video. We've got pretty good digital version of it. I can show you how it works. I can give you all the keys and the details. But the training for us too isn't just necessarily that there's someone standing there, that kind of apprenticeship workload. The training is just doing the job. So as a technician, I tell them this all the time. So you're learning every day. So every job you're doing is a training exercise. I think what we can do is digitally, and we found this is kind of how we did it in 2020, is the training really is happening as you're working. What we can do is we can give you a system overview. We can give you pinch points. We call them tech topics, right? Like, this is where we see failures most often. Here's a version that you may want to watch out for, kind of, et cetera. And then we back that up with our tech support hotline. And so they could call into us, and we route them to one of these 8 senior level, master level technicians. And they had access to more data, right? We have, QSL for Cummins, or we have PSL for Detroit. And then we would couple that with like FaceTime. So we would say, because the whole job is the training experience. But then what we could do is digitally, we could come in and say, okay, we're going to kind of be your wingman here. We're going to provide you with the information you need to see specifically. It's always data. It's always those specific technical specifications that are kind of unknown, right? Like I can tear down a wheel end. Most guys, I could say, okay, just look at this and tell me what you think will happen, and kind of tear it down, and I'll kind of guide you as you go. Most of them could take it apart. The question is, what are my wear items? What are my wear limits? What's my torque procedure on this wheel end? What's my torque on the hubcap? What's my torque on the wheels? What are the kind of areas that I need this specific technical data? And so what we've tried to do is we've tried to couple that digital version to cover that specific information, maybe that they don't know, and then maybe provide some support on the back end, either whether that's for the senior technician or somebody maybe at their location, and let them learn as they work. So when we define training, it's never just a single experience. It's every day, it's every job. So it's probably a pretty large amount that I would define as training hands-on. But I think that the gap isn't necessarily at that hands-on portion, at least only for parts of it. So we try to answer that question. And I think shops, we learned a lot in 2020, and I think we did a good job on our warranty. We brought our warranties down. We did a fairly good job, actually, even within our hands-on section now. That's pretty true all the way up to that mid-level technician. Now, when you get to the heavy level work, because we do injectors, cylinder heads, things like that, you want to have somebody there for that hands-on portion. But, it's changing, because this industry is coming closer to other technical industries. Like IT or medical, where the technology is growing so rapidly that now, the average technician we hire has to be computer literate, has to understand these type of non-visual systems, and has to have that kind of understanding, because now all of our diagnostics is so much more technical that we're able to support it in a fashion closer to those other industries, where we can do a larger portion of that virtually. So you still can't replace that hands-on, I don't think. I think a lot of it, is that hands-on, but that hands-on training might be the job you did every day. It might be what you did tomorrow. And then you just need that kind of support to back you with the information that you're missing. So it's changing a lot. And I think virtual is going to work. I think it's going to play a big role, but
so maybe 20% today, but then growing.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Especially when you look out there, Kenworth, Freightliner, Eaton, they're all coming out with these fully electronic trucks, all battery powered stuff. And I've tried to keep my eye on it because it's coming. So a lot of that may be done even without the truck there. I mean, that's what we're looking at. You're looking at these type of wholly digital systems. You're still never going to replace the hands-on portion, but almost all of your diagnostic may be done remotely, even by your technicians.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering is, it sounds like you're centralizing, or you have master techs that, from a call center perspective, where you've torn apart, 1,000 wheel ends, you know just about everything there is. Plus you've got, a book that's giving you torque specs. How do you keep up with the new stuff coming out? So there's a bunch of new components that come out, or maybe it's a hybrid component. Are you sending your master techs and like yourself to schools and doing a train the trainer version, or is it right? Is that how you're kind of approaching that?
That's it. And the other part we did, so our tech support guys, our trainers, they still work in shops. I still work in a shop.
Yeah.
So I tell my guys, when we pitched the idea to corporate, I pitched this to them a couple of years ago. They said, "Oh yeah, maybe get you an office and this." I said, "No, I've got to be in the shop.
You want to be a player coach."
Yeah, I've got to be, because it's the technology aspect as well. I mean, it's changing so fast. I can't disconnect from a location. As a trainer, I think it's critical that I stay in locations, because we're seeing new things all the time. So,
Tim, I love hearing you say that. There's so many trainers we know that are just disconnected from what's really happening on the floor. And it only takes a short period of time, and you've lost sight of, what the new wheel end looks like.
Right. Even now, year over year, they changed. We were just doing one. I was just doing a diagnostic this morning procedural diagnostic with one of our technicians in Missouri. And he had a wheel end on a 2020 Freightliner, and it's got this new Conmet set up. And he says, oh, I said, well, he's asking me socket size or something. I said, well, send me a picture of it or FaceTime me and let's look. And we look, and I says, geez, I don't know. So, I send me a picture and I send it out. We communicate with our tech group. There's 8 of them out there, all senior level master technicians. And I just sent this out and I said, hey, who's seen this? And of course, about half of them had, so they said, oh, hey, here's what it is. And you need this, take this clip out here. And it's got this clip behind this. And this is the socket size. And I love to be part of that solution. And I love to, these guys are doing it because, every day they're out there doing the work. So if I had been, and this was just a 2020 model, if I had gone to an office or if I had sent these other guys to an office in 2018 or 2019, we rolled this out, I wouldn't have had the answer. I would have been trying to look at, Comment's website or something, or calling the manufacturer to get the number and maybe dig the technical data, which you can do. I mean, that's fine, but it's all the little, especially when you get kind of farther along in your career as a diesel technician, you'll find you can, I'd say most technicians can tear anything apart. Putting it back together, that's always the challenge because there's all these little tricks and there's all these little specs that you have to watch out for, and reading a manual usually won't give you that. It's not going to tell you, hey, this stud breaks half the time, right? Or this snap ring, it loves to get stuck on the backside. Make sure you use an angled pick. A manual's not going to tell you that. So we, that was kind of part of the agreement with corporate when I took this role, and as well as with the technicians that we brought on as our tech support guys. That, hey, you're going to be in a location. You're still going to wrench, we're still going to, and you may be assigned an apprentice, the apprentice is doing most of the wrenching, but you still got to work every day because, like you said, Chris or Jake, it's changing. I mean, rapidly, and the technology is getting more and more complex. So,
yeah, Tim, before we wrap it up, I wanted to touch on that. So just going back to the electric, so the comment you made on the electric, I mean, from your point of view, and I actually have this quote from Bill Gates. Let me just read this. Bill Gates said this: EVs, electric vehicles, EVs excel at short haul travel. That means that there are great options for personal cars and even medium duty vehicles like city buses and garbage trucks. But even if we develop cheap long range EVs that are powered by zero carbon sources, electrification isn't an option for many types of transportation. The problem is the batteries are big and heavy. The more weight you're trying to move, the more batteries you need to power the vehicle. But the more batteries you use, the more weight you add and the more power you need. So even with big breakthroughs in battery technology, electric vehicles will probably never be a practical solution for things like 18-wheelers. He's really referring to class 7 and 8 vehicles and long haul travel. Electricity works when you need to cover short distances, but we need a different solution for heavy long haul vehicles. And that's where you have, hybrid solutions coming in, maybe diesel electric or hydrogen fuel cell electric, so forth. So what are you guys doing in terms of training ahead of this? I assume you haven't had an electric semi come through a Boss shop yet.
No, yeah. And we think we're kind of in line with that. We think regional will be where electric goes. Long haul for electric is going to be a real challenge. I think that doesn't mean it'll always be diesel fuel. I think when you're looking for some type of fuel cell revolution, it won't be. I mean, even now, battery packs and electronic motors operate like at 99 or 98% efficiency. So we don't see them playing a big role in long haul. We don't see anything yet. Most of that stuff is all prototype, and a lot of it they're testing out in California, some in Texas, I think I've heard. We haven't seen them come across ours. They're all still in market research. But what we're doing is we're monitoring, and we think the big players are going to be Eaton. They're developing, and it's kind of an odd one because, for you guys that kind of come from the trucking background, that, Kenworth makes the truck, Cummins makes the engine, and Eaton makes the drivetrain. Now what you're seeing is that those solutions, the quote unquote drivetrain, is when you're talking electrical, is all produced as a single body. So there is no engine. It is only all drivetrain. So some players like Eaton may emerge as industry leaders. And they're moving pretty aggressively. So, but I read up on the studies. I've been monitoring Eaton's. Freightliner's just come out with one that's pretty promising. We're kind of watching to see, and mainly we're watching to see how their role will play out, kind of like the way Tesla did. Are they looking at opening that up, to independent locations, or are they going to try and keep it dealer only? Right now it's looking like they're going to play it as dealer only, and of course we're not dealer affiliated, but that is something we are considering, a partnership maybe with Eaton. And by the way, I don't mean that at a corporate level. I'm just saying kind of ideas we've kicked around, but
sure.
Because I suspect when it comes, it'll probably be mostly regional, and that they'll be looking to maintain a dealer network for their maintenance. It's not going to be something that independent's going to see, I don't imagine, for quite some time. But so we are watching it. We're waiting to see. Right now, it's kind of a techno war. So,
but Tim, and yet even today, if you are running a fleet and you need a truck fixed, you almost have the choice of take it to the dealer, let it sit in line for 2 weeks, or take it to an independent. And you got to think that when electrification comes, the law of large numbers that is kind of playing itself out in that phenomenon is not going to change.
I think it will. I think we will see it. I just don't know how expansive it's going to be. So and we still don't know who the market leader is going to be. So we're waiting to see which technology is going to fill that role. So we don't want to. We will once we have kind of a clearer picture of who is going to become the leader, the industry leader. I think that's when we'll start to make our big push to either get affiliated with them, with that particular dealer, or to begin paying maybe for third-party training. So, because there'll be a big lag time. I think we'll see it. I think we will see it probably in the next 10 to 12 years, but we'll have lag times between, technology rights. I mean, that's trying to get the software from the dealer, get the training from them. There'll be a kind of a big lag for independents like us, but I think you're right. I think we will see them. I think they'll have no choice but for us to see them, especially if they want to cross state lines. Dealerships can't cover the type of footprint that you can get with independent locations. So I think you're right. I think the law of numbers is going to play a role there. But I think we'll have enough time. I think that we'll have probably a 2 to 4 year gap between when we see them become a norm, a market leader emerges, and we see who's going to play, who's going to be the big dog on the playground. And between then and the time that we are actually able to work on them as far as when they fall out of warranty and kind of the rest. So we have a buffer, and we are very conscientious of it because we do, like you said, we think it's going to play a big role, at least regionally. I think Mr. Yates is probably spot on with his analysis. When you look at our industry, especially heavy haul, it's all about weight ratio, because they pay you to haul products, not batteries. That's one I heard the other day. There'll be some challenges there, but I think you're right. Maybe a hybrid solution. Hydrogen is promising, but again, we're kind of waiting to see, what is going to emerge at the top. Where are we going to end up here? And short of, maybe a large type of government mandate or something that we're seeing as far as laws being changed, I think that the industry is probably going to play it out over the next decade. So
makes sense. Well, Tim Hawes, Director of Shop Training and Development at Boss Truck Shops, thank you so much for being with us, Tim.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jake. Chris, I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, have a great one. We'll talk soon, Tim.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Diesel Stories Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and check out dieselstories.com for more episodes.